She's on your radio dial.
Do I sound like I'm on old-time radio?
Now, back to the Cindy Graves Show.
That old-time rock and roll.
First to fight for the right and to build the nation's might, and the army goes rolling along.
And welcome to our pre-Memorial Day celebration and our opportunity to honor our military veterans that have made their home in Northeast Florida, as well as all the families of deployed active duty and the active duty that are here protecting us on the military bases here in Jacksonville. We appreciate every single one of you. We also appreciate the opportunity to welcome back for this half hour Angela Corey, who is the very successful state attorney of the 4th Judicial Circuit. Welcome back, Angela. Tell me, it's so interesting that before you took office, that the state attorney's office was in last place, the 20th out of 20 in conviction rates. And simultaneously, that had something to do with, I would think, the fact that we were also ranked the murder capital of the country. Tell us about it.
Well, Cindy, the statistics were very concerning, and quite frankly, I worked in this office and was so busy dealing with just our own homicides that, nobody ever told us we were coming in last in the state. That was never told to us by the former state attorney, and I think all of the people who worked here would have been concerned about that. These are numbers compiled by every judicial circuit in the state of Florida. These are not Angela Corey numbers. We have to submit our numbers to the Office of the State Court Administrator, and based on the same numbers and the statistics, this office has turned that around, and we're so proud of the men and women, the lawyers and the support staff who have done this hard work, and that's what it's come from. Good ideals that our party believes in of hard work, working harder than you're even asked to do, putting forth your best effort for this community, and that's how we've done it.
Well, but so your predecessor, though, would have had, while you working there maybe weren't aware or clearly were not aware of these dastardly numbers, the state attorney at the time would have been aware of them.
We would think so because, they keep track of the statistics. We knew our own homicide numbers, but we didn't know how we ranked compared to the other circuits. The Jack's Journey is really what brought this to everyone's attention, and we're very grateful for that because it teaches us all a lesson that what we think is going well may not be so based on a community standard. And so we care so much about this community. We want to be, number one, not because of statistics alone, but because those statistics have true meaning behind them, which is that we're getting the really bad criminals off the street for longer periods of time, which common sense tells you means they aren't out reoffending like they were before.
And reoffending means hurting you, me, my mother, your sister, whoever that is out there on the streets to be unsuspecting victims.
Exactly.
So when we talk about these things, this revolving door, and that was one of the reasons that I got involved in your campaign, because the revolving door of justice and these deals that were being made with everyone from violent felons to pedophiles was alarming to me.
Well, and Cindy, I'll be eternally grateful to you for your mentoring and you guiding me through that campaign. Well, let me tell you why. Because, again, when you're so caught up in your own world, when you're spending 18 hours a day just going after certain bad guys, and that's what I was doing as a homicide prosecutor, you and several other people brought me out and helped me look at this more globally, which is what has allowed us to continue to do our part for prevention and intervention. We still divert first-time offenders that are nonviolent. We still do that, yet we are focused on our core mission of prosecution, which is putting the really bad people away for long periods of time.
Well, I appreciate you. I'd like to ask something of you in relation to some national headlines that have been coming out this week.
Sure.
As far as the IRS, what is your take on this scandal of looking into conservative groups, religious groups, Catholic groups, Jewish groups, anybody that evidently doesn't have the same opinions of the world as Barack Obama?
Cindy, that goes back to what I was talking about with Ed Austin. He taught us that the fundamental principle by which we guide ourselves is that we have a lot of power. As the state attorney's office, prosecutors have a lot of power, and you always wield that power carefully. As the Supreme Court, the U.S. Supreme Court has said about prosecutors, you have the authority to strike hard blows but not foul blows. That was nothing short of a foul blow. And we can't do that. When you're in any position of authority, due process, fundamental fairness, equal protection, all of those concepts should be your guiding principles. And targeting people like that is not a guiding principle.
No, it certainly isn't. Well, tell us something else, too. What we were interested in talking about, as far as this immigration bill, that it keeps on coming back and forth before the Senate. And to put it in perspective, one of the things that I found extremely troubling that they added to as far as trying to be tougher on the would-be new legal immigrants to our communities, that the third, they put this in this week, the third DUI that you're convicted of if this law should pass and you are a new welcomed immigrant into the United States of America, that you would be deported. What happens to you in the state of Florida if you were convicted of 3 drunk drivings?
Well, then you're looking at felony DUI. I mean, we take drunk driving very seriously. People who have a drinking problem should be reviewed and checked by people who know what they're doing to see whether or not this was an isolated incident of a couple of glasses too many wine or beer, or do you truly have a drinking problem? DUIs are tough, Cindy. That's the one crime where we ask people to guess, are you over the limit? And so I would suggest to people, if you want to drink, you want a nice evening out, please arrange for someone that's not drinking to drive. And let's not get into this game of, do I think I'm okay to drive? Yeah, I think I can do it, only to find out that you can't. To deport somebody for a third DUI when we have tons of people in this country illegally who are committing violent crimes is a little concerning to me. So I think we need to always prioritize, again, go hard and tough on the violent criminals and use some common sense when it comes to nonviolent. But if they're repeat misdemeanors, then there may be something we have to do about it.
Well, I mean, it's unusual for a person to achieve 3 convictions for DUI, isn't it?
It is. It is.
Not your average.
No.
Well, I just felt that was concerning, and possibly that we could even expect more out of new legal immigrants, to our country as it went. So tell me, you also have hit the nationwide headlines over the last year and in several months because of a special appointment. You have been this is also another term that is being bandied around America this week, which is special prosecutor. Now, you have been appointed a special prosecutor by our governor, Rick Scott, in the Trayvon Martin case. Please tell us what a special prosecutor is, first of all.
Cindy, any time that one of the 20 state attorneys has a conflict on a case or needs to recuse for any reason, we certify the conflict, get with the governor's office, and they reassign the case. For example, if my best friend got arrested for something and I couldn't prosecute the case, I'd certify the conflict. The governor would appoint probably R.J. Larissa or one of the neighboring, Bill Cervone. We all take each other's cases. Right now, my prosecutors are handling several executive assignments, is what they're called, in many jurisdictions. In fact, one of my top prosecutors, James Colaw, picked up a murder case that he was working on when he worked for Bill Cervone in Gainesville, and because he was so plugged into it, we sent him over to the Panhandle working for us, and he successfully convicted a murderer that was a 20-year-old cold case. And that's because that state attorney had to withdraw from it. So we do these executive assignments constantly all over the state, none quite as high profile as the one you just mentioned.
Well, because America was going into meltdown. There were people on both sides of this. And I like to say that you're the only person, and I know this wasn't even your mission, but you're the only person, much less a woman, that I've ever seen get Reverend Al Sharpton to be speechless and to shut his mouth. After you gave that fabulous press conference and were so good to both sides, and I think averted a race war in this country, that all of a sudden Al Sharpton had nothing ugly to say about you.
Well, Cindy, people that don't know our system and don't know how we operate here may have been saying things, but quite frankly, first and foremost, it's probably none of their business. We're accountable to the people of the state of Florida for what we do. We're accountable to our victims and to our community, so that's to whom we answer. We don't answer to people like the person you just mentioned. Second of all, we always have to do the right thing, and we are committed, as I said before, to having Trayvon Martin have his day in court and George Zimmerman have his day in court. And I would like for the advocates for both of those people to calm down, wait for the trial. Remember, there is a filter called the rules of evidence that may or may not allow
That pesky
any
rules.
Exactly, Cindy. Those rules filter everything that can come in before a jury. And a lot of the things that the media is throwing out there may or may not come in front of a jury. So we want people to pray for both sides, pray for our trial team as we go through this very complex and comprehensive process. Any jury trial, Cindy, even a 2-day jury trial, can be very intense. Imagine what this is going to be like for our trial team.
I can't even imagine. How long do you think that such a trial is going to last?
Well, we're expecting jury selection to take at least 3 weeks, possibly 4, and then hopefully the trial, our part of the trial, could be done in 2 weeks. That's what we're trying to plan on, but of course, we don't know. Whatever the judge tells us, we will do. Judge Nelson is the judge currently presiding in Sanford, and so people understand, I am appointed as the state attorney for the 18th Judicial Circuit for purposes of this case. And that's how it's handled. I go into their courtroom just as though the state attorney down there were trying it, but I'm on executive assignment. So it's a little bit unique, but we've had it happen here before. There just hasn't been that much publicity about it.
Well, this one certainly will be grabbing the headlines. So when you say that jury selection will take a week, in a normal, average, everyday trial...
Yeah, 3 weeks, Cindy. That we're thinking jury selection could take 3 weeks.
3 weeks. That's what I meant. I'm sorry. How long does jury selection in a normal, let's say, hit and run case or something like that take?
Cindy,
like
the longest, and I've tried numerous homicides and death cases, the longest I've ever spent in jury selection here in Duval, Nassau, or Clay was 3.5 days. We gave our opening statements on Thursday afternoon. We don't understand, like this latest big high-profile case, the Jodi Arias case. We were like, oh my goodness, what takes 4 months to try a basic murder case? Because all murders are brutal. No murder should ever happen. It's an illegal homicide is basically what a murder is. And still the proof can be complicated, but it still shouldn't take months and months and months. And I'm very proud of how we do in the state of Florida, that we are able to get most murder trials conducted in an orderly fashion with all due process rights pertinent there too. We really do well with that.
Well, the other term that's being bandied about and has been thrown in from one end of the legal court to the other end of it is Florida's stand your ground law. Explain what that has to do with the Trayvon Martin case and how we'll see that or not see it going forward.
All right, Cindy, I just want to start off by saying both personally and professionally, we believe obviously in the Second Amendment. I have been carrying a gun my entire adult life. The people confuse stand your ground with the right to bear arms. Those are two entirely different things. It's like confusing the right or privilege to drive on the highways, that's a privilege. I believe that the right to bear arms is a right. But just bear with me as I go through this. The privilege of driving with then being able to drive drunk. See, with every privilege or right come concurrent responsibilities that you have to have. And all this is, Florida's law has always said, if you have to use deadly force, then it has to be because you are in fear of imminent death or great bodily harm. And that's called justifiable use of deadly force. Cindy, it's what our police officers do when they have to take a life. It's what our homeowners, cab drivers, store clerks who are being robbed, when they respond with deadly force against the robber or the bad guy, that's the affirmative defense called justifiable use of deadly force. It's been around for the 32 years I've been prosecuting. There's nothing new. What is new is this procedural mechanism for them to be able to file a stand your ground motion and have a judge hear it before a jury hears it. That's what's new about the law, and that's about 6 or 7 years old now. That's how long that's been going on. So it's a procedural mechanism. It's not a substantive change in the justifiable use of deadly force law.
And are we going to see that here? And why does a judge see it before a jury sees it?
Because if the defendant files a motion, then we have to go through a hearing. I'll tell you what it's similar to. Except this decides the whole case. It's similar to a motion to suppress a confession. The state, when we get a confession, when the police obtain a confession, we put that on in what we call our case in chief. If they file a motion to preclude us from doing it, it's called a motion to suppress, then there is what's called a pretrial hearing that determines whether that evidence is going to come in. Now, we may still be able to prosecute the case because we have tons of other evidence, eyewitnesses, DNA, or whatever. But with regard to stand your ground, that is supposed to be a total determination of whether the state can proceed to prosecute. Now, if a judge rules against us, we can appeal it, and we have appealed and won. If the judge rules for us, then we go to trial, and the jury makes its findings, but then the stand your ground aspects can be appealed by the defendant on appeal. So it is a procedural mechanism that occurs before the jury trial. This is a very complicated law, Cindy. Justifiable use of deadly force is very complicated. And,
well, it's a complicated issue. I mean, if somebody's dead, thank goodness that everybody takes it very seriously.
Exactly. That's a good point, Cindy. We do want people to only take a life if the law allows for that, and it has to be in fear of imminent death or great bodily harm.
Well, somebody else I think that's taking things very seriously is our governor, Governor Rick Scott. He got some whiplash in the press lately, which I thought was completely unwarranted, talking about that he is pushing people for off death row and into the death mode. Well, this five warrants he has signed this year, but this is after these 5 people have exhausted every single appeal. Isn't that correct?
That's exactly correct.
That means you have to get off death row and be dead if you got the death sentence.
Right. And there are people who have been on death row, Cindy, since I was just out of high school. Now, your listeners probably know how really old I am. No one should be on death row that long because there should be a final determination and some closure for the family. And I am all for give the person facing the death penalty give them the best lawyers. Give them the experts they need. Give them everything they need. Give them their due process. And if it is in accordance with Florida law that they be sentenced to death, and that's been upheld on appeal, then there's no reason that death sentence shouldn't be carried out.
And in the state of Florida, if you do receive the death sentence and are convicted, nobody goes to the death chamber the very next day.
No,
I mean, obviously, you get automatic appeals here in the state, correct?
Exactly. Automatic.
Well, God bless you, Angela Corey, and your entire staff. I know you have a lot of veterans on your staff, too, and I know y'all will be celebrating this weekend when we are talking about our veterans on this Memorial Day. Thank you for everything you've been doing for us.
Thank you, Cindy. Take care of yourself, and God bless all your listeners.
Well, God bless you. We hope you'll come back and give us updates, and we're going to be praying for you when you get involved and get all the way down there in Sanford, I guess, is where you'll be with the Trayvon Martin case. Thank you so very much, Angela Corey.
Thank you, Cindy. Take care. Bye.
And we'll be right back after these messages to wrap it up and let you know about a few things that are happening this weekend that you won't want to miss.
The Cindy Graves Show.